The views and opinions expressed on the cap are those of the hosts. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Old Milk Media. Any opinions stated aren't intended to offend anyone. On this episode of the Cap Podcast, we react to Faith of a Mustard Seed by Mustard. Welcome back. This is episode 514 of your critical but accurate tour through hip hop, the Cap Podcast. We are your tour guides. I am Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you might be tuning in. Feel free to go ahead and join the conversation by leaving a comment, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel. That being said, Taylor, how are you doing?
Good. I can't complain. It's the morning after the Red Sox did it to the Yankees again. So, who am I to complain?
I mean, that is your Super Bowl and all, so I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It's not really the Super Bowl. There's plenty left. I'm not like someone else, let's go, because I'm going to watch all the games and care about all the games, but, it was good. Anyway. It's fun.
On this episode of the Cat Podcast, we are reacting to Faith of a Mustard Seed by Mustard. This album is 14 tracks, 50 minutes long, and it features Kirk Franklin, Lil Yachty, Blue Bucks Clan, 42 Doug, Vince Staples, Schoolboy Q, Quavo, Rob 49, Ty Dolla $ign twice, Travis Scott, Charlie Wilson twice, Masego, Blast, A Boogie with the Hoodie, Roddy Ricch twice, Future, LMA, Kodak Black, Young Thug, and Lil Durk. It's obviously a compilation album because it is a producer making it, so that's why we have all these features here. That being said, Taylor, what are your thoughts on Faith of a Mustard Seed?
Man, I think one of my favorite themes of this year is here all over this album, and it's the adults are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a veteran of the game in Mustard, doing what he does, right? This feels like an album that was put together on purpose, right? This isn't just like. So I struggle with producer albums a lot of the time with producers that like aren't my favorites. You know what I mean? Like when Metro does a producer album, I'm there because I love Metro Boomin. If Alchemist did a producer album with a bunch of different artists, then I'm there. Mustard has never been one of my favorites. Obviously, he's on a crazy heater this year because of Not Like Us. But like, they're not usually my favorite. But with someone like him, and this album stands up to what I'm about to say, like, I always have a lot of appreciation when you could tell that like a lot of effort and work and thought went into something, and like the production on this is really good from top to bottom. And even though like some of the features aren't my favorite, you know what I mean? Like I'm not really trying to like Up Now with Yachty, Blue Bucks Clan, and then 42 Doug. Like that's not really like the song for me, right? But it's like Mustard made the beat, probably had one of them in mind, and then was like, all right, these people would sound good here. So I have a lot of respect for that. And I also have a lot of respect for not, whether he could have or not, I don't know what the deal is, obviously. He could have put Not Like Us on this, right? Because he produced it. But like, I have a lot of respect for being like, that was that, and this is this.
Yeah. I think Not Like Us would probably take away from the album because this
absolutely
the album. First of all, Not Like Us is the song of the year. That's just established. But at the same time, this album is very precise in its storytelling. I think that's done through the skits, and every time like we get a few fourth wall breaks throughout this in the skits, which I really appreciate from Mustard. It shows his ability to tell a full story despite having, because like you said, like with producer albums, there's usually a lot of, and on this one too, there's a lot of artist turnover from song to song. You're not going to get the same couple of artists on song by song by song by song, and that could be an obstacle in terms of storytelling. But the way that Mustard's able to pull this together with every artist having these songs that are on theme with whatever portion of the album they're on top of that having those skits that make this atmosphere of this album come together. I think that's really, really smart on his part. And I think the track listing, because of all that, the track listing is incredible. I love the cover art as well, seeing young Mustard DJing. I think the first song, as we get into the song by song, but I think the first song, Show Me the Way, does a good job of grounding the album where Mustard wants it to be. And I think that where Mustard wants it to be is a focus on having faith in yourself, because Mustard on this album is basically telling his story from where he grew up, like growing up in Los Angeles or growing up in California to where he is now. And he's basically trying to give he's basically trying to give people who want to be in his shoes the motivation that they can do it too. Throughout that's what I got from this album. And I think that all comes together on the last song, which we will get to. But I think that the first song, "Show Me the Way" with Kirk Franklin on it, really grounds the album in the faith that Mustard had throughout his whole career. And I also like that at the end we get our first skit. We get Mustard's sister trying to wake him up and for school, and that's like such a cinematic moment because I there's so many like uh coming to I don't know what you would necessarily call it, but like there's so many like movies that are like based off of like a individual's development that kind of like start with like, yo, you got to wake up for school, and like
Yeah.
for Mustard to do that as well, like immediately puts this album in a place of cinematic brilliance, which I really really love.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a perfect way to describe it. And I think that belief in yourself from the beginning is super important because we get a lot of skits right at the end of songs, but it's never really something that's like as real life as that, right? We get a lot
Yeah.
of voicemails from mom, right? We get a lot of voicemails from mom. We get a lot of skits that are like you're doing like some like debaucherous shit, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? You're like living crazy or whatever.
Or you're mad that because your friend keeps bringing up your divorce.
True. True. We get a lot of like adult things, right? We
Yeah.
get a lot of like real grown up things in these skits, whether it's like funny or it's like deep or it's, like I said, debaucherous. Like we
Mhm.
get a lot of that. I think for an album that's called Faith of a Mustard Seed, like having that be the skit to start the album is like, yeah, like this is like a lifetime's worth of work for this, like for Mustard, whether or not this specific album is, you know, I don't think this album is what he's been working on his whole life, but like the journey here from when you're being a kid to now, like that's the real journey. This isn't like a oh, I got on and then the journey starts when I was like first in the game. It's like, no, it started, I mean, like you said with the cover, it started a long time ago.
Mhm.
And I like the balance with the skits too, or not even the skits, like we only have two skits here, but like Show Me the Way with just it, like there's Kurt Franklin, you know what I mean, on the first one. And then I like having 7 to 7 in the middle of the album, and then
Yeah.
you have Pray for Me at the end. Like
Mhm.
I always like it when there's like a good balance to that, and you don't get like two song skit, 2 song, 3 song, 3 song skit. Like it's like, no, it's like here's this chunk skit, here's the next chunk, and then he ends it with the 10 minute, ballad pretty much. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of balance. I think this is over and all an actually like really balanced album, and it just furthers the like, yeah, he's an adult man. He knows
Yeah.
what he's doing, and he does it on purpose.
I agree with most of what you said. I do think that there are more skits on this album. Like there are songs that are dedicated to skits, like you said with 7 to 7. That's definitely like dedicated to the skit, and that's
Yeah,
like such a relatable skit also, which we'll get to. But I think that, for example, I guess now is a good time to talk about like the song by song. Um, I I like how each skit leads into the next song, which then leads into the next skit, which leads into the next song. So, like I said, when we have Show Me the Way, we're getting a song, and then we're getting Mustard being woken up by his sister to go to school. And the next song is kind of interesting because it kind of, which is the next song is up now, and that's the one with Blue Bucks Clan, 42 Doug, and Lil Yachty. And I like that throughout the song, Mustard is shouting out where the rapper who is about to rap is from. So like he's like, "Yo,
yeah,
I'm calling out the West Coast rappers," and then that's Blue Bucks Clan. He's like, "Okay, now it's time for the Midwest rappers," and then it's 42 Doug, and then he's like, "Okay, now we gotta go to the A, Lil Yachty rap," and
yeah,
then Yachty raps. I think Yachty low key carries that song. Also, I think his voice really really works well there.
yeah,
But at the end of this song, we get another skit, and it's like, now this time Mustard is in school, and it's attendance being called out and stuff like that, and Mustard isn't responding to his name being called. What I got from it is that his friend is trying to tell him about a party that they're gonna go to later, and then the next song is about a party that they're at.
yeah, right.
So it's just a totality of intention throughout this album that I really, really appreciate. Up Now is one of my favorite songs because like I the mix just works so well together, and I would never think to put First of all, I would never think to put Lil Yachty on a mustard beat. I would never think to put 42 Doug on a mustard beat. And Blue Bucks Clan, they're from the West Coast. That makes sense for them to be on a mustard beat. But like then to have 42 Doug and Lil Yachty and Blue Bucks Clan on one song together and make it work makes like if you were to say that in abstract, it would make no sense. But of course, it's Mustard who maybe besides Metro Boomin, at least in terms of the 2010s, is probably the greatest producer of that era. So obviously it's gonna work there as well.
Yeah, yeah, and what I meant more was like the standalone,
Mhm,
like skit. You know what I mean? Where it's like on the track list, it's like we're naming this skit. You know what I mean?
mhm.
That's yeah, because you are right, and he does tie everything together well that way, and I think it helps with the narrative of the album so much to like have that. Um, I don't know if you want to start getting into some songs now, but
Yeah, let's
there's
do it.
some like up now it's like not my favorite, but you're right. Yachty does go crazy on it, and then like you texted me right when this came out, and you were like, I already know what your favorite song on this album's gonna be, and you were right. You know what I mean? Pressured Up with Vince Staples and Schoolboy Q, like that's what I'm here for. When I don't go to Mustard often. You know what I mean? I'm not
Mhm.
like seeking out Mustard production very often. But if you're like, hey, like who are you trying to hear on, DJ Mustard, like, production, it's like yeah, it's people from the West Coast, like Vince Staples and Schoolboy Q. Um so that goes crazy. I think Vince, like, man, like you and I have talked about a lot about like Vince kind of evolving as an artist over the last 3 years and like making a lot more like I would almost say like palatable music where he's like it's not so like you don't have as many like electronic elements
Mhm.
to it and it's not so like abrasive. But I do love when like Scary Vince comes out a little bit and he kind of reminds you that he's like it's like yes, is he like this super like he sees the world in such a different way, right? In his interviews, like it gives you another perspective. But I do love it when he just like gets to do like his thing and be like, no, like I grew up in all this too. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I can like jump right back. And I think Q's is really similar. Like they both have this very like kind of like grown up, like almost like I wouldn't say oracle, but like kind of like they sit on the sideline and then they jump in when they want to, but they're very observant. But I do love it when like someone like Mustard can get them to just kind of like be like, like 10 years ago, where they both can get
Yeah.
just like kind of like go crazy on something.
I agree. I also think once again, we're gonna I personally am gonna be talking about the skits a lot here. I think that the skit at the end where you have Mustard talking about the party culture of LA, he kind of breaks the fourth wall there. He's like, yo, like so many things can happen, man. It's just like a party in LA, and it's kind of like there's no other way that I can picture that besides like there's like a camera like looking at the scene, and then you just have Mustard like acting like he said like he's next to you and he's like talking to you and he's looking into the camera like there's nothing like a party in LA, and it's like
Yeah.
it's just so cinematic in that way, and I think that once again like that just brings the album to a whole nother level. um the next song here is one of the ones I like Quavo's verse on one of the ones. I like that Mustard is doing ad libs on the Quavo's verse as well. He does it on Rob 49's verse also. But you could tell that's a song where I'm like, okay, Mustard is having a lot of fun making this and putting this together.
Yeah.
Also, shout out Rob 49 for actually rhyming throughout his verse. So good job with that.
Yeah. Hey, me and you were early to Rob 49. I wish I could remember where it was, but I remember he had a feature on something we talked about, and you and I were both like, I don't know anything about this guy, but he's hard to ignore, man. He
Yeah.
shows up and he's there.
Yeah, that I can say that for sure. Yeah, for sure. Um, Next song we have "Parking Lot" by Travis Scott. Not gonna lie, when I heard the sample of the beat, I was like, this doesn't make sense for Travis Scott to be on at all. That being said, however, the first verse, Travis Scott slides, especially towards the end when he gets his little flow going. He slides on that. I have to give him credit for that. Um, I, again, like there's nothing more to say about it besides the brilliance of Mustard being able to take someone, put them in a place where they're not the most comfortable, and it still comes out amazing.
What was that meme? I sent it to you a couple months ago. I was like, damn, I'm like a real music fan. I see Scott song and I skip it or something like that. I didn't do that necessarily, but man, I've in the last 10 years, or maybe it's closer to like 12 or 13 years since I first heard Travis Scott, my like interest level is like a straight down. like graph. You know what I mean? It stayed pretty steady from like 2012 to 2018, I would say, and then like
Mhm.
post Astroworld, it's definitely like taken a pretty significant dive. So I'll be honest, I didn't pay this song very much attention because you know sometimes I hear certain people's voice and I'm like, yeah, this one's not for me.
Moving on, talk about our first skit, 7 to 7. Very cinematic interlude, very relatable. Um, it's like you and your friend, you want to go do something, but someone has to ask their mom for permission, and you're trying to figure
Hmm.
out who's gonna do it, who has the better chance of getting a yes. That's basically what's going on here. I think that that's amazing. I think that the placement of it is great as well. I think that the song coming after it, being a song for mom, is also just brilliant. Um, just overall just great construction of an interlude, great construction of track listing once again, and just having it lead into a song for mom where Mustard has Ty Dolla Sign and Charlie Wilson serenade his mom about all the things that Mustard is gonna do for his mom. I think that's just amazing. I think that it's very rare now that we're I mean, more times than not, we talk about albums that are like this, but it's very rare that we get songs that lead into each other so seamlessly. And I think that that's just this whole album here.
Yeah, this is my favorite little stretch on this whole project. I like 7 to 7, a song for mom, worth the heartbreak. Truth is, like that's my favorite stretch of this, and I think you're right. I think 7 to 7 it it lends itself perfectly to a song for mom, and then you get worth the heartbreak, which is like very pleasant to listen to. Like
Mhm.
blast his hook is so nice. Like I could probably do without the A Boogie verse, and that's not. I don't really have much of an opinion on A Boogie. Like I just don't think he added a ton to what Blast was doing. But yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite stretch, and I think this is it's just another it's like the perfect example like and I'm glad you brought it up because I hadn't even really put it together like 7 to 7 leading to a song for mom like that's what I'm talking like it makes me like want to anytime like there's little things like that whether I notice it or you notice it or someone else notices it and tells me about it anything that like makes me want to go back and be like all right let me hear that again with that perspective
Mhm.
like that's when I'm like all right this is a good project because there's a lot of stuff that like you and I will talk about and I think we both feel this way where it's like could it be interesting? Sure, but if like without like someone else like in your ear being like, hey, no, like really give this a chance, you kind of like you're like, all right, I get it, but it's not that's not necessarily for me or that's not my favorite. I think like something like that is another example of like where it's like, no, this is like worth it to go back into this and like really like listen to it slowly and like pick it apart and be like, why does this interlock like that? And I mean, it's obviously thank you to Mustard for making it relatively easy. It's and seamless, but even when things are seamless, sometimes it takes like another listen or two to go back and be like, yeah, that's really like what he was doing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the first listen I knew it was a good album, but then the second listen when I really sat down and started like going through it, I was able to connect a lot of these dots and really gain a more of an appreciation for this album besides it being good music, but like it being a complete story, like we've been saying this whole episode. The next song, Truth Is, I mean, I just like how well, here's the thing, right? Like Truth Is, Minds, and One Bad Decision kind of all blend in together because once again because of like the skits at the end of these songs. So like first of all the chemistry between Roddy Ricch and Mustard impeccable as ever, like they always make good songs together. But having the skit at the end of Truth Is where you have Mustard talking to his girl and like basically saying like I want to come see you and stuff like that, and then that going into Minds, which is basically about like yo like this girl is mine, I love her, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is really good track listing as well. I think that Future, the first verse, I mean, it's Future, you know, like
Yeah,
it's Future, like it's amazing. But I like that Mustard develops, like the beat develops as Future's first verse is starting, and I think that
yeah,
also brings like another level of anticipation throughout the song of throughout Minds. And then at the end of Minds, you get a skit where you have Mustard's girlfriend calling him back And she's basically like accusing him of cheating, and she's like, "Yo, like if I catch you cheating, like this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen," and that leads into one bad decision where Ella May's basically singing about getting ready to shoot her boyfriend because he's cheating on her, and then you have
She
Roddy
better
Rich
not,
giving,
she better not shoot her boyfriend, man.
um,
NBA
so
champion, Jason Tatum, no.
um, you also have Roddy Rich, which I assume to bring what Taylor's saying full circle is rapping from the perspective of Jason Tatum in this situation. So all in all, like the run from Truth Is the Minds to One Man Decision is also another
That's
example
crazy.
of Mustard's genius.
That's crazy. I know Mustard's probably a Laker fan too. This is nuts. I hadn't even really put this together. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's genuinely crazy.
They're
Um,
put yo, mm, my playback value may have just changed a little bit. My final thoughts may have just changed.
um,
He's trying to get my man killed.
moving on. We have Yak's prayer. Kodak Black is a lot of things. Another thing that he is a really good storyteller. This shines through here. Um, I like that. At the end, we have another atmosphere builder. This time, you have Mustard, who is in the hood. And there's like so many different things that are common in the hood, taking place on in that little, I want to say maybe like 30-second skit going on, and then you just have Mustard at the end go like, the smell of the ghetto. And I now that I'm thinking about it, because that's another example of a fourth wall break that I'm talking about throughout this album, and it kind of reminds me of like those 1990s 1980s West Coast films, like John Singleton films like Boys in the Hood and Menace
Yeah.
to Society and stuff like that. It has like that, I guess, like grittiness or the raw feeling like these skits have, that is similar to those songs. Not those songs, those movies, which I really, really appreciate. And I love those movies too. I think they're I mean, those are all classics. But then we get to Ghetto, and then having Young Thug, first of all, a Young Thug verse, they seem to be less and less common, which is unfortunate.
Hmm.
So that makes this verse so much more valuable. But I think the most valuable part about this song is Young Thug talking about like how he's paying it forward so that other people can pay it forward and like continue that trend that way. And I think that's just good for like overall culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you're right. The thug verses are becoming fewer and farther between, and as long as this keeps going on with him and his the court proceedings, like I feel like that's gonna keep being a thing because it seems like last year when they did what was it, Business is Business,
Yeah.
that seemed like a I wouldn't obviously I imagine he has thousands of songs in some hard drive, right? You know what I mean? But like in terms of the stuff that was like already kind of like in the works or ready enough to come out, it does seem that we're kind of like nearing the end of what was ready. So you're right. That's a good word to valuable is the right word. It does make it more valuable, especially when it like means something. It's not just like a young thug like talking, like being cool, right? It's
Mhm.
like it's more than that. Um, yeah, man.
Yeah.
To
And
hear it out loud, to be like, damn, we're like it's like the farther it goes on, it's like because and there's like the real life brain that's like doesn't look great for him, right? But then there's
mhm.
like the rap fan brain that's like maybe you know what I mean? It's still like, all right, yeah, we're just waiting until it happens again. And it's like when you put it like that, right? When you put it like that, it's more valuable now. It's like, damn, it's like, yeah, like because
Yeah.
we don't know how many more there are gonna be.
Unfortunately, yeah. But finally, we have Pray For Me, and I think this is the most important song on the album. You have Mustard rapping and speaking about his journey. He's shouting out people who helped him along the way, and he's providing motivation for people who aim to be in his shoes one day. I mean, I think I think the most important thing I could say about this song is in 2024, for you as an artist to make me sit down and want to listen to every minute of a 10-minute song is like hang the banner. Like you did your job, man. Like really, really good job. I like hearing Mustard rap. I would like to hear more verses from him. But having this song be so personal and intimate with him, like literally shouting out everybody. Um, it's like a final call of sorts. And like again, like I don't like there's not much more to say about this song besides like it's really, really good and it's probably the most important song on the album.
Yeah, it definitely is. It reminds me a lot of not necessarily how it sounds, but just the intention of like Last Call on the end of
Mhm.
College Dropout, where Kanye goes through, a lot of people and talks about his journey and pulls the curtain back in a way that you normally don't get, even in interviews, right? It's like this, like just like kind of like stream of consciousness that just that comes out, and we just got done talking about the Ice Spice album and how there's like a lack of real life in it, right? There, because there is, and we don't get as much. And I'm not making the comparison between Mustard and Ice Spice, but like it is something that makes you want to invest in an artist more when you know about them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's only so far, and especially for a producer, like it's much harder as a producer, you know what I mean? Because then it's really just like their product, right? It's not even like, oh, like I like their voice or I like what they're rapping about or singing about, right? It's like, if Mustard never does something like this, right? All we get is beats, right? Like, and without the, if you're a casual fan, you're probably not listening to interviews, right? So if
Yeah.
you're not listening to interviews, then it's just beats, and then you're just like, yeah, that's all that's the only interaction I have with this artist is beats, right? And so for a song like this, I think it opens up the door and allows fans who, because there's going to be a lot of new fans who are listening to this album who didn't know
Mhm.
Mustard before or didn't understand what Mustard was before, who are going to be here because of Not Like Us. And so, you get through 13 tracks that are good and you have the skits and you have the whatever, but then you get to Pray For Me, and it opens up the door, and it's like there's going to be, people who already knew about him who are going to hear it and like get further invested, but you're going to have a lot of new people who are like, okay, like this is a real person behind all this. And
Mhm.
I think it's crucial. It's crucial. Like Mustard's already made it, right? He doesn't need to, you know what I mean? He doesn't need to do something like this, but I do think it makes it even easier to like root for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like want to keep coming back because he does this.
I agree. Playback value?
For me, I mean, so something like Worth a Heartbreak, like that has like some real playback value. I think it's a great song. It's like awesome to ride around in the car too. I already did that a bunch. So for me, I'll say a couple weeks. I'll say 2 to 3 weeks. It'll keep coming back to this. I'm sure that certain songs will last longer, but for me, I'll say 2 to 3 weeks. Overall, I'm undecided. I think like having a Young Thug song, having Yak's Prayer, I think those will last because people love those artists. I'll say about the same, right? For 2 to 3 for subjective and objective. I'll say like, 2 to 3 weeks for both.
Yeah. Objectively for me, well, yeah, objectively for me, I think this could go 2 months, honestly. I think we're in the middle of summer. A lot of these songs could be played outside. There's so many different vibes here as well. There's definitely something for everybody here. And for that reason, I think this could last for probably 2 months. Subjectively, I got this going 3 months. I love a full story being told. Like I love a story being told from start to finish. I think that there's an extra layer of difficulty with it being a producer telling a story and for it to be executed the way that it has been executed so brilliantly, so precisely, I that gives me I'm just so impressed by this album because of that. And for that reason, for me, it will be 3 months. Final thoughts?
Yeah, so my final thoughts are like after after an insane spring for Mustard, right? An insane start to this year. Like having the biggest song of the year and nothing's gonna come close to it, and having, either arguably or inarguably the beat for the biggest and maybe best like diss track ever,
Mhm.
right? Like he could have just wrote that and been like, all right, you know what I mean? Like I'll make the I'll get to like the whole personal album later on. Like, you know what I mean? Like he could have moved this, he could have done whatever, but he didn't. He followed up like his biggest hit, you know what I mean? The biggest hit of the year with a very professional, very put together album that I have a ton of respect for, right? Like and I think that's what it is. Like a lot of these producer albums, it's for me at least, I am like, it just makes me respect that producer so much more. So I think he could have. So my final thought is pretty much like I think he could have just like let it ride with Not Like Us and push this farther down the road and done it later. But he didn't. He like stuck to what he wanted to do, and I have a lot of respect for that. My favorite songs are Worth a Heartbreak, Truth Is, and let me see. because I know those are my two for sure. Worth a Heartbreak, Truth Is, and then Pray for Me. It's hard
Yeah.
not to do Pray for Me, but like, I don't want to leave it out. So those are my three.
Yeah. My final thought is Mustard creates a compilation album that does a great job of telling a story despite the usual song-to-song artist turnover that comes with compilation albums. My number three favorite track is mine. My number two favorite track is Up Now, and my number one favorite track is Pray for Me. All right. This has been the Cat
Here,
Podcast.
I messed up. I messed
Oh,
up. Sorry, Roddy Rich, you're not here. My number one is Pressured Up. I completely forgot about that. Pressured Up, Worth the Heartbreak, Pray for Me.
got
Sorry,
you.
sorry that I cut you off, and sorry to Roddy Rich. I'm really sorry, but it had to happen.
All right. Like I was saying, this has been the Cat Podcast, episode 514. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave your opinion on Faith of a Mustard Seed in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this episode, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow Old Milk on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Old Milk Media. Check out oldmilk.co for more information. I'm Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod, and we will be back when hip hop tells us to be. We are out. Thank you for watching.